Hello, welcome back on my program. We're still on the issue of the immigration conflict on the policy in Canada, considering that there are many people in Canada, almost 2 million people in Canada living without documents. And every day, this immigration issue becomes a topic. Anytime election is coming close, all the both opposition party and Liberal Party under the Justin Trudeau use the immigration as an scapegoat or immigrants. And today we are going to look into how many country or which country is the most impacted on this policy since this liberal government become an anti-immigrant instead of being pro-immigrant since he took over the government. We also will look into the previous immigration ministers and including the one that is in charge of, development now, Ahmed Hussein and Sen and the Mark Miller, the current immigration minister. So today we are going to look into all this issue as much as time permits us. For you to understand that immigration become a topic of every campaign in Canada, and the people suffering this issue is the immigrants because they do not have anybody to speak for them. And considering that without, the voice of all the pro immigrants, like all the organization advocating for legalization of all the illegal immigrants and equal rights, today we will go into the details and let you understand that this immigration or migrant in Canada has become, issue which every party or opposition party can use to further their campaign, which is not right. So in a minute, I will be back. Thank you very much and be patient. Thank you very much once again. My name is Ekens Asbika, the founder of Ekens Foundation International. I'm an advocate of immigration advocates, and I have vast experience because I work through the grassroots under the Ekens Foundation. So I'm very, very, very much aware what's going on based on Canadian immigration, whether it's international student, whether it's a refugee, whether it's international law, international relation, and international covenant in terms of international customary law. So I'm better positioned, better equipped to educate you on what is going on in Canada based on the immigration conflict. I'm going to look into which country are most impacted based on this conflict law by the new immigration minister. And I'm going to let you listen for what other journalists are saying regard to this issue.
It's seems trouble is brewing in Canada. Hundreds of Indian students have been staging protests against a new policy by the Justin Trudeau government that puts them at risk of being deported from the country. The new policy is aimed at reducing the number of permanent residency nominations by 25%, as well as limiting study permits. Now, why is the Trudeau government doing this? The government says the change is to give preference of jobs and housing to Canadians first. The change comes, remember, as Canada sees a rapid population growth over the last few years. As per federal data, about 97% of last year's population increase in Canada was driven by immigration. Remember, many international students, particularly those from India, aspire to move to Canada in hopes of building a better life. But the new immigration policy changes have left the future of more than 70,000 student graduates in uncertainty. Indian students have been camping in front of the Legislative Assembly in Canada's Prince Edward Island province, protesting this policy change. In fact, similar demonstrations were also seen in the provinces of Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia. Many suggest that amid a local housing and job crisis, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is under pressure to reduce the number of temporary residents. Added to that, his continuous low numbers in popularity polls ahead of an election next year. Let's try and understand this situation better on the broadcast. First, I'm joined by Daniel Bodman, a Canadian journalist. We will be joined by a student as well as an immigration expert a bit later as well. Daniel, good evening. Namaskar. Welcome to Mirror Now. Let me understand from you what is happening in Canada as far as the immigration policy is concerned. Here's a man, Justin Trudeau, who has been supporting immigrants all this while, and now he comes up with a...
Are you a STEM professional and are looking to apply for U.S. permanent residency? Then stay tuned.
I will continue in a while is how the government become an anti-immigrant other than being pro-immigrant based on his election promises. What suddenly changed and why he suddenly make a U-turn and turn against immigrants? I will let you continue to listen what the analysts are saying.
Cataclysmically failed, and everyone in the country is turning against him on it. And he's losing people among the left who are seeing the destruction wrought by these open immigration policies with absolutely minimal vetting. And it's hurting everyone. It's not just hurting Canadians, but it's hurting a lot of the Indian students who are being scammed into Canada. They're being sold this Canadian dream. You're being told that, well, most students are signing pieces of paper because you can't stay here is the thing. If you're coming to study, you have to study here and then go back to where you came from a bit, and then you can apply again for permanent residency, or then you can go to the next step. But you do have to go back. They're being told by people in India and in Canada, scammers on both sides of this, the border, that, oh, no, you can work around this. We can get you in. Some people come in and then they get student visas. One of the scams is they then to be refugees from the Punjab region. Pakistanis get involved here. There's even someone who's now claiming to be a refugee from their own parents. Their parents are mean, so they need refugee status in Canada. This is the level of absurdity it's getting to. And these people are either, a lot of it's human trafficking. They're being forced to pay thousands of dollars for services they don't need. Some of it is scam. Being sold a job market that doesn't exist. A lot of them are going to universities or accredited organizations that are, they're strip malls with a bunch of schools inside these malls and universities that offer you online classes, so they don't really prepare you for anything. You end up basically becoming an Uber driver all night. You live in a house and share a room with 5 or 6 people where you sleep on the floor and you pay exorbitant amounts of rent. So this is the situation people are getting into. It's not benefiting anyone. And the government, 72 hours ago, Justin Trudeau would have called Justin Trudeau from current day a despicable racist. There's no place in Canada. And we need immigration at maximum levels because immigration is always good. If there's any problems in the country since 2015, the answer has been just throw immigration at it. It increases the GDP supposedly, but not GDP per capita. Canada because you of course have more GDP in a country of
which is
40
what
million
I'm coming
people
to
versus
next,
a country
Daniel.
of 30 million. Sorry?
The fact that this comes ahead of an election, I can't help but ask how much of this actually has political influences, actually has the reasoning of Justin Trudeau's popularity dipping and the kind of local domestic challenges that he's been facing at home in terms of housing and the
14%.
job crisis that his government probably hasn't been able to resolve.
It's 114% because of that. And there's even reports now that they're trying to fast track as many people as they can. They're skipping the vetting process to get as many. Listen, the Canadian economy, our number one is we shut down the resource industry under Trudeau because that's bad and climate change and blah, 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 blah. So it's better to buy it from Gulf states and communist states like Venezuela. That will get our energy there. So our number one economy was human trafficking and money laundering. And the Liberals and most of the government has a sort of a finger in the pie in this. So a lot of these kids from other places too are being scammed with this Canadian dream, being forced to pay thousands, go into these institutions, but then funnel money back to the political parties and so on and so forth. It's gotten to the point where they literally cannot hide the damage this is doing to the country, where everyone can see it, everyone can feel it, economically, socially. Country's in a very bad spot.
Okay,
So
as you can
in order
see,
to,
my
I
point
think,
here
save the
is
brand of the
that
Liberal Party
the
long term,
government
they're going to do this
to
sort of smoke and
blame
mirror show. They're going to say
every sector. The government continue to blame every sector due to their failure of immigration policy. The other way around, the Liberal government was blaming the universities for bringing in a lot of international students by giving them admission without adequate, proper, adequate documentation, providing houses for them. And now the government turn around and blame immigrants for house crisis in Canada. And now the government also turn around, start blaming the employers for employing all the short-time immigrant or foreign workers. So does it mean that the government is not better equipped to solve this problem of immigration? Since 2015, they took over the government and they promised heaven and earth, like they're giving the impression that the Liberal government is pro-immigrant. Why sudden change towards election time that immigrant is the one causing this problem? I will let you continue to listen to the analysts, other countries, because this immigration issue most affected Indian students. So I will let you here continue to listen to them
on some of this, and we can't just have people going through this pipeline where they come as students, they go to fake schools, and then they claim refugee status or whatever or anything, and then get to stay in the country indefinitely. It's not how the system is designed to work. And a lot of Canadians feel bad for a lot of people scammed into here, but we went from a country of 30 million people to 40 million people rapidly.
Okay.
And that has consequences. As you point out, 90% of the population growth is immigration. So we're having very, very hard times integrating these people if most of the people you're interacting with are recent immigrants from different places. And it's not that Canadians are racist, but it's just coming to the stark reality that if people aren't speaking the languages, don't understand the culture, there's going to be discord. I mean, I know one of the student protests, there's a bunch of students protesting in Brampton that they failed their exams and they want to still get their degrees anyway, despite failing. And the protests aren't in English. They're in Punjabi. They can't even speak English. And Canadians are looking at this going, what the heck is going on? This isn't like we think of student immigration coming for, like, you're going to go to McGill or you're going to go to Queen's or the University of Toronto, real schools, and get real degrees. But that's not what happened. You're going to Polytechnic Institute of Counting to 4 in Brampton, and you're taking an online course in nothing, and you're getting these diploma mill degrees, and your kids, you feel bad for them because they think they're going to come to Canada going to work hard, they're going to be able to afford a house and a job and get something. No, they're going to end up getting a fake degree, doing Uber all night, and living in a house with 13 other guys.
Okay. Daniel, let me ask you my last question. When implemented, do you think, how much do you think would it actually have an impact on ground? How much would it influence the average Canadian voter ahead of the election? How much would it actually help the country's revenue? Because we know immigrants are getting in the revenue as well. How does that work out then?
So it's like revenue to who, right? So this is where they played the fudge the numbers game. Like if you want, mega corporations that need cheap labor, yeah, they're getting it in. And, people, I do feel bad because we're kind of focusing on the hardworking immigrants or the kids who are struggling doing Uber all night. Like you feel bad because they're at least trying to contribute and trying to make it. The real scam is people just come into the country, declare refugee status or some phony thing, and just live off benefits the entire time. Like that is the bigger problem. That's where I'd like us to focus on the deportations. But there's been a whole imbalance. So Canadians are always very pro-immigrant.
Okay.
Everyone has a story of this, but you can't have the rates of immigration we've had, right? In order to integrate properly, you need immigration at a lower rate. You can't have zero, right? Because that would be bad. The country would collapse at zero immigration, but they can't have complete open borders. And since 2015, we've pushed the total complete open border. All immigration is good. Vetting is racist. All the sort of far left things you think of when you think of silly Western politicians. That's been Canada for the last 10 years. So we've completely broken the scale. And we've gone so far off the deep end to the mass migration side that there's going to be a correction. Because the fact that you're seeing Canadians protesting immigration in a country that's probably the most pro-immigration country in the world, used to be before Justin Trudeau, just shows that you can break an immigration system with just completely it's most Canadians. And you can find interviews. If you interview an Indian who came here 3 years ago, they'll say it's too much because most immigrants get in within 6 months. Their policy is to shut the door behind me because it's too much. The market's saturated, and this isn't the life in Canada they were promised by media and seeing things from 20 years ago, and maybe they scammed into it by some malicious actors. But either way, like the promise that is Canada is not being fulfilled, and it's hurting the kids over, and it's hurting Canadians. And the Liberal government's been profiting off of it, but now everyone's so mad and has realized the problem that the Liberals are pretending to take a hard stance against this.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Daniel Bodman, thank you very much for joining us at the moment on the broadcast and sharing your perspective on this entire situation. Viewers, on the broadcast, I'm also joined by Rajiv Arora, immigration expert, and Mehakdeep Singh, a former student who in fact is facing deportation. Good evening. Namaskar to both of you. Mehakdeep, let me come to you first and understand from you, what is your situation currently? You are facing deportation. Why are you facing deportation?
Right now, I'm facing deportation, but I'm on visitor record. So my work permit was expired in last month in July. So I applied for a visitor record and I got it. So right now I'm on a visitor record. The only option I have is to buy a LMIA. Here the LMI mafia is going on. So they sell it for like $30,000-$40,000, and then we got an offer letter. That's a job offer from employer, and we can extend our work permit. The only option left with me is that, but I'm not going for that. I never support the exploitation. So it's totally exploiting the international students or the PGWP holders. Yeah.
Which is what I want to understand from you, Mehakdeep. What do you think of these new changes that the Canadian government has brought in the immigration policy? They are saying they will reduce the number of foreign immigrants. They will also reduce the number of housing temporary residents that is given. The Indian students there are protesting. What are your concerns?
So they are changing the policies overnight. So, for example, I can take my example as well. I worked as a baker in last 1 year from 2023 and till 2024 July, till I got my got my work permit expired, I worked as a baker. Last year, they were taking the files of baker and approving it in just 3 months. And in this year, I got that I got to listen from the community that they are just giving preferences to transportation and healthcare staff. So they are no more. They don't need any more other convenience store workers or the pizza store workers, as well bakers also. So last year it was a skilled job, but these days they don't need bakers. So this is they are changing according to their own needs. But we got exploited by the government in the like last years. Yeah.
Okay, let me go across to Rajiv Arora, immigration expert. Rajiv Arora, what do you make of this? The students have their concerns, like Mehdeep said, that, the government in Canada has been changing their guidelines continuously, and they're bringing in sudden changes. What does one do at that time? How does this affect Indian students, this new policy change?
Hi, look, in my opinion, I would say gates for Canada immigration cannot be open forever, right? There has to be limitation. Canada immigration is a strategic immigration system. They have invited a lot of thousands and thousands of people in the past, but it cannot go forever. Because if they will invite, will give permanent residency to people without counting the numbers, how would they accommodate people under social security? How would they accommodate people under health insurance? How would people will be accommodated under free education, right? So there has to be a limit.
Rajiv Arora, my question is, did the Canadian government not think about this earlier? Suddenly you remember that you have a stricter rules and you have to limit the numbers. Did you not think this through when you were coming up with the immigration policy? That time you thought it's all about inclusivity and the revenue that the immigrants are getting in.
Every country thinks about them first. This is what I would say. If we are Indians, we always think about our nation first, irrespective of other nationalities. So Canada immigration is also thinking in their perspective. They want to stabilize the economy of the country. Right now, housing crisis is going on. We have thankful people who have got their permanent residencies and who have migrated to Canada on a PR and who had a dream of it. They should be grateful for this. And students, if I talk about, if they have studied in Canada, they would have got their work permit also. If they have got their work permit, they would have they would be able to meet their CRS score also. That is that comes under express entry round of invitation. So there is a policy under CEC class. Still, students can get their permanent residency. Okay. You have to be competent. You must have required CRS score and required English speaking. Your scores. If you are meeting your educational requirements, IELTS requirements, then you can get your permanent residency today as well. So Canada immigration is saying, if you have come on study here, we have given you work permit as well for 1 year to 3 years time. After taking your work permit, even now, if you are not able to score up to the mark, then you can go back to your country and you can come back once under any permanent residency program. So students have got their study, have got completed their study, they have got their work permits, and now approximately 70,000 students are about to be deported. What the report says.
I'm sorry, I'm going to come in here because
who are not able to touch that.
The gentleman who is an immigration expert is speaking from the political perspective. So, and you see, this is what I have observed from the politicians here in Canada, because of the kind of crafted policy and which they designed to to be around them. So people that came in will fall this victim. Whenever you ask the politicians or ministers, you ask them any question, you will understand that they will divert this question and take you off guard, because they don't like answering question as it is. They like, turning things around whenever the question is thrown to them. Every time issue of immigration came up and say, okay, why this? Or if you ask them a direct question, they will change the the narrative and start telling you something else. You ask them question A, they will answering you B. They are not being specific and being honest and open free will information, because the information they are giving is filtered, which is not really good for every immigrants, because those immigrants are so ignorant, while those minister of immigration, or people, all those people in the parliament, they are well professional people, they are well groomed, they are well crafted. So when you ask them A, they answer you B. When you ask them B, they will change the question, which I'm going to show you most of example of what I'm talking about here. But the thing I'm trying to say that, I don't see how immigrants is going to cause problem here in Canada, because there is no way any government can get the immigration policy right without knowing the accurate number of illegal immigrants, without legalizing them, without putting them on the system. Even the job they are talking about, there are so many people working under the table in Canada. There are so many people underground. There are so many people undocumented, close to 2 million, approximate the estimate, according to the experts. Almost 2 million people are underground, or more than that. Let's assume 2 million. First, the immigration have to come up with a clear and undisputable policy and say, look, this is the criteria you need to meet in order to, renew your work permit. If you lost your status, this is the condition for you to, renew it back. But a lot of people are afraid of showing up to immigration. They prefer to go underground, because immigration here, mostly Canada Border Service Agency, the moment you show up to them and they find out that you are illegal in the country, the next thing is to deport the person. So a lot of people are afraid of showing up. So the problem is, I don't see any problem of the immigrants here. I don't see any problem they are causing, unless the government is not willing, is not sincere on immigration policy. And now I believe that before the election, the Trudeau government should call his immigration minister. If he doesn't want to change him, call the Minister of Public and Safety and sit them down and ask for a clear and undisputed policy to legalize all the immigrants. First, they need to close their border for temporary period, and then legalize those that are in, to know the accurate population in Canada, how many people are undocumented. They should give them at least 3 months for them to go and normalize themselves into the system. When they get this, they can be able to, regulate how many people come in, how many people, how many visa they are giving. But as it is now, the immigration policy in Canada is out of control. That is what it is, because the current immigration minister continue to blame every sector: the farmers, the employers, the universities, the other sectors. This issue should have been settled before the election, instead of putting it to the, using an immigrant here as a scapegoat. I'm going to let you to continue to listen to the
particular CRS score. Otherwise, if we talk about low wage LMIA, the biggest news is from Justin Trudeau, that is about low wage LMIA reduction. So they have restricted all the employers, that no employer can hire more than 10% of the staff who is a foreign worker. They would not approve any LMIA to people, right?
Rajiv Arora, let me take this across to Mehakdeep and understand from him. Mehakdeep, what Rajiv Arora is saying, that a lot of Indian students don't have the required CRS score, the required guidelines are not met and the documents are not in place by Indian students, and those are the people who will possibly face deportation if they do eventually?
Okay, so first of all, I will take example like if I am organizing an event and I'm inviting 100 guests, like right. So I will be responsible what to do with those 100 guests, how to provide them with the food, with the seating arrangements and everything, right? So they were not planned for that. To just to complete the economy, to build the economy after the COVID, they were inviting. They have opened the door for the unlimited immigrants, right? In 2021, 2, and 3 till now. So now they got to know they have used the previous immigrants who came in 2018, 19, and 20. They have already used them, and now it's time to send them back and use the new ones. And another thing, as Rajiv said, like we are not getting that much score.
I'm gonna
For
pause
that,
it there. Did you hear what this the guy is saying, that those that came in previous year has been already been used, and now they are pushing them back, deporting them so that they can allow other people in. This is what I said several times on my program about recycling policies, recycling immigrants. This is it. This is a part of what I'm telling you. So it's not like the politician does not know what they're supposed to do, but because they are using immigrants to play politics, I'm sure the staffs and employer of Canada Border Service Agency, the Citizenship and Immigration, I'm sure they will understand what I'm talking about. But the problem here is that people does not want to say. People are afraid of the government. People are afraid of losing their job. People are afraid of being deported. But this is not right. I'm glad the United Nations have issued a statement regard to this. So the government does not listen. How many years now I've been calling for the Trudeau government to create what is called the Canadian or Immigration Ombudsman. This Canadian Immigration Ombudsman will be the oversight for the secondary evaluation of those that the application was rejected. Because if this happened, then because the federal court is not an option here. The court is not an option because the court always side the government. There is no point of creating Citizenship and Immigration, creating Canada Border Service Agency, creating this organization, and the two of them work in conflict of each other. Minister of Public and Safety and Minister of Immigration does not collaborate each other. They fight each other. Even the Minister of Justice, I have seen us oftentimes that the Minister of Immigration will grant application for an applicant. The Minister of Justice will go to court against that decision, or Minister of Public and Safety. So this is a conflict in the government that need to be cleared. And I hope that the incoming government must listen. I don't even think conservative government will be an option, because they may be worst. But what I'm saying is that before the election, that Trudeau need to listen, reshuffle his cabinet, especially when it comes to immigration, and listen, legalize all the illegal immigrants, over 2 million people on the ground. How can people be on the ground working under the table? The money they're supposed to pay tax to the government, they're withholding it because they are working under the table. The moment they legalize, they can be able to pay tax and contribute to the economy. How is it that people will work here for almost 12 years before they get deported, and all the tax they paid to government become a waste? And I have written to some MPs on many occasions so that whenever somebody is getting deported in this country, should be able to file for the tax he pays to the government, instead of government using an immigrant, sending him back. The issue of refugee is out of question because that is under the international law. It should not be interfered by a domestic law. So I'm gonna let you to continue to listen to the interview by the analyst in a while. Thank you.
Canada government never gave CEC draws in last 2 years and 8 months. So it's a big time. 2 years and 8 months, they never gave any CEC draw in which we qualify. So due to that, there is a number of students sitting in the pool. So if they have given the draws in that, there
Rajiv
will never
Arora,
be
you want to
this problem.
respond to what Mehekdeep is saying?
Brother, I
Yeah.
would.
Rajiv,
Yeah.
you want to respond to what Mehekdeep is
I
saying?
I would love to.
There
I
were
would love to.
probably lapses.
I would love to respond. Mehdi, brother, I totally sympathize and empathize with you. I'm totally with my Indian community. I want everybody should get the permanent residency. This is my wish. But Canada immigration has given general round of draws also in the past. If CEC class has been started in the past 3-4 months, it was on pause for 2 years. But before that, they gave invitations to each and everyone who was falling under Canadian experience class, even with a CRS score of 75 in the year 2021. They gave permanent residency to each and everybody who was inside Canada with the lowest CRS score of 75. So that is the history. And after that, they have been giving invitation under general round of invitation, or they are giving now invitation under Canadian experience class. So they are giving preference to Canadians. They are giving preference to people who are already in Canada and are working in Canada. So what would I say? The decision of Canada government is actually appropriate in my opinion. They have to balance out the situation. Otherwise, people of different countries would seek for asylum. They would love to leave their country, flee from their country, would love to settle in Canada only at any status, which is practically not possible. You cannot please thousands and lakhs of people. So, and Canada has taken the right step. And in the future, Canadian economy situations will go better, and that is good for all other people who are living in Canada as of now, even who are Indians, like my relatives, my friends. It will be good for them as well in Canada.
Yes, Rajiv. Sure. Okay. Before I wrap this up, let me quickly ask Mehekdeep. Mehekdeep, lots of Indian students have been protesting there in Canada. What is your next step? Quickly, if you could tell us.
Okay, and one thing I need to tell, like they started giving CC draws from May, and they started protesting from April. So after that, they got like there are Canadians sitting in the country also who need CC draws. That's why they started giving these CC draws. And I'm a from India. I worked there for 3 years as a supervisor. I have 777 in IELTS. So I'm just sitting at 461, doing every single thing I can do. So the only left thing is LMIA. I can't buy that. And on the protest things, we are going to make it more strong in the coming days. And on 30th of August, again, we are going to protest. And I need to update one more thing. There is a in the last couple months, they have announced they are closing the public and private college collab. They have banned that. The DLI for those colleges was suspended, and now this thing going on in Canada. Those private colleges are failing students just to gain the profit from them. And I'm standing right there at the protest. St. Clair College have 100 of students just to get the profit because new students are not coming to this college from this September.
Okay, Mehekdeep, I'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you, Rajiv Arora and Mehekdeep Singh, for joining us today on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. I hope you listen to all the question and answer and the analysis and both the victims who are the students themselves. And this is just the Indian population, almost 500 Indian international students about to be deported. So this is why you can see this is going on back and front. So the point I'm trying to make here is, it's not like the government does not know what they are doing, but it's not good for them to continue doing this because it does not make sense that the government continue to, use immigrants the way they want because people are afraid to talk. People are afraid of being deported. But at least one day somebody must to stand up and and take the bull by the horn and say what is really going on. So my point here is the government should be able to, live by the expectation. I'm going to also let you hear by the former immigration minister, and I want you to be very, attentively listening to him. I want to let you know to understand how those ministers, has been crafting their lifestyle when it comes to immigrants. You can see how they are dodging questions. You can see how they don't want to answer a direct question when a question comes to them. The next person I'm going to, let you listen to him is the former immigration minister. Okay, and he managed this immigration sector for years before he was removed and then given another portfolio. But you can see that when this immigration issue or the crisis of housing crisis was thrown to him, he dodged the question. And I'm going to show you, this is the way the answer crafted and filtered information. Listen to him and you will understand what I'm telling you. Because
there's something that we could do there, as well as the measures that we've already put in place, like putting a 1% vacant tax on non-Canadian, non-residential owned real estate that is not being used. Homes should be used by Canadians to be lived in. In addition to that, as you know,
I will get back to you in a while.
The temporary ban on foreign ownership by
The 2023 federal budget put it this way: everyone should have a safe and affordable place to call home. Ahmed Hussein is Canada's Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion and the Liberal MP for York South-Weston, and he joins us now on what the federal government is doing to make that idea a reality. It's good to have you in that chair.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, first time on this program, I think.
Yes, first time.
Excellent. Good to have you here. This issue has been described as a housing crisis, and I just want to start there. Do you see it as a housing crisis?
It definitely is a very challenging issue for very many Canadians.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Very challenging doesn't mean crisis. Is it a crisis?
I've used the word crisis before, and I'm happy to use it again. The fact of the matter is,
did you hear that? This is what I'm trying to tell you. And if you pay attention to these ministers, and you will understand how crafted they are. Whenever they throw a question that can make people understand what is going on, they sneak away and dodge the question. You will listen and you see that. Did you hear what he said? Somebody asks you A, you're answering B. That shows not being sincere. If somebody at that stage or class as a political elite, and someone who have managed the immigration sector as a minister for years, who understands the problem, how come he's dodging a question? And this is what they've been doing, because they said they are going to legalize all illegal immigrants, and now the election is coming up and they're using it for, something they are planning to use it for political promises, which they've been doing. And this is what I'm trying to let you know, that if you are very careful, you can understand how they are dodging questions, because this is the same thing I'm telling you. I'm going to show you, when he was immigration minister, he also announced Canada need immigrants, Canada need this population. At the same time, the people they are deporting, people they are denying, cannot add up, and this is why the population is not growing. I don't see how immigrants will polarize Canadian society, because as I always said, that The population of 33, 34 million that doesn't go up and doesn't come down, comparing the vast land Canada have more than US. How come the immigrant, how many immigrants is going to polarize the Canadian environment? I will let you to continue to listen to him. So you judge by yourself.
Through different levels of government. But we are making tremendous progress in this regard. And but we need to do more because the challenges are real. People need to have access to safe and affordable housing, but also housing that meets their particular needs. Different Canadians have different housing needs depending on their on where they are in the housing spectrum, and we have to be there for all of them.
So if it is a crisis, or even if it is just a very challenging situation, do you think your government has responded with the adequate boldness required to meet the moment?
Absolutely. And I'll say that because, first of all, to even respond, you have to prioritize the issue. And prior to our government, the previous government did not prioritize this issue. They didn't see that they had a role in federal leadership and responsibility on this issue. They simply invested very little amounts.
The issue may not have been as much of a crisis under the previous government as it is now.
Lack of access to affordable housing has always been an issue in the last number of decades. And so what we said is we will bring federal leadership back into housing, but also federal resources. And that's why in 2017, we came up with the National Housing Strategy. And that wasn't designed in Ottawa. We spent the time from 2015 to 2017 to actually talk to Canadians on what this would look like. And through that input, we were able to put together the National Housing Strategy, a 10-year plan. Started off as a plan of $40 billion. Now it's grown to $82 billion. That's the level of ambition that we have in this space. We know there's more to do. And we can't do it alone, by the way. We need every level of government to step up as well.
Do you have good relationships with the other levels to make this happen?
We do. We partner on all sorts of things, from building more affordable housing, repairing existing stock, providing direct rental supports to people through the Canada Housing Benefit, which is a 50-50 shared program between us and the provinces and territories.
You getting on okay with Doug Ford?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I work very closely with my provincial counterpart in Ontario, Steve Clark, who I have constant contact with respect to these issues.
And the Premier's nephew actually shares the same riding you do.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we work well together.
He's in cabinet too.
But going back to the federal government, we have not only brought back federal leadership, but we've brought significant resources to the table through this program called the National Housing Strategy. Within it, there's a number of programs and streams of funding for different types of housing, again, to respond to the needs of Canadians who are at different stages in the housing spectrum. You can't have a one program that fits everyone, right? And so I would argue that that the National Housing Strategy shows the level of ambition that we are bringing to the table. And in fact, if you listen to the other side, the Conservatives have been attacking us for doing too much. They want us to do less. And they've said that the federal government should kind of just leave this to the provinces and territories.
Okay,
and we don't agree with that.
They're not here right now, so I'm not going to worry about what they have to say. Let's worry about what you've had to say. Here's a line in the budget. This is from the just released budget by Chrystia Freeland. The government is committed to ensuring that investor activity, especially among those who own a significant number of investment properties, is helping, not hurting, housing affordability in Canada, and will review whether the government needs to rebalance the housing market in favor of Canadians looking for a home to live in. What would signal to you that it's time for the government to take measures to rebalance the market?
So first of all, enabling people to access enabling first-time home buyers to access the dream of Canadian of home ownership, while also making housing affordable and sustainable for people who own their home. Those are not mutually exclusive. And so what we are doing is making sure that first we recognize that homes are not commodities. Houses are meant to be lived in by Canadians, and that's why we've taken a number of steps. The study that our finance minister is alluding to is on looking at housing as an investment tool, looking at real estate investment trusts, looking at the tax treatment of those things to see whether there's something that we could do there, as well as the measures that we've already put in place, like putting a 1% vacant tax on non-Canadian, non-residential owned real estate that is not being used. Homes should be used by Canadians to be lived in. In addition to that, as you know, we've brought in the temporary ban on foreign ownership by businesses and by individuals on Canadian residential real estate. Again, to enable more Canadians to have more access to homes so that they can purchase them and have that dream of that Canadian dream of home ownership.
I have heard criticism from economists that all of your plans involve helping get more money to first-time home buyers to get in at current high prices. And I wonder whether you are opposed to measures that would make prices actually come down.
One of the ways to enable more people to access homes is to increase supply. We simply don't have enough supply of homes in Canada. And at the local level, it is unfortunately really hard to build much housing. And so one of the things that we intend to do is to do something about that and to, again, show federal leadership in that space so that we can increase the number of homes in this country. We have the fastest growing population in the G7. We have, but we don't have the housing supply to meet that demand.
I understand that you have a delicate balance here, because on the one hand, you want to increase supply, which would presumably tamp down the cost of homes. But on the other hand, there are people who already live in homes who have their life savings in them, and they don't want the value of that resource to go down as well. So I get that it's a delicate balance. Have you found the right sweet spot in that balance?
Look, I mean, Steve, I'll say that the government of Canada is not, we don't determine the price of homes. We're not in the business of determining home prices. That is a function of the market based on supply and demand. What we can do is incentivize the supply of different types of housing to meet the accessibility and affordability needs of Canadians. So in other words, for example, a paramedic who lives in our city, who's increasingly priced out of the rental market, needs access to affordable rent. We're building more affordable rent through the rental construction financing initiative and the co-investment fund. So our job is to fund, but also incentivize local governments to just build more supply, to make and to build more affordable supply, more density around transit, making sure that we deliver and approve homes faster so that it doesn't take too long to build anything in this country.
What's your view on the provincial government's plan to allow home building in the former Greenbelt?
Well, any type of housing projects that are funded by the federal government have to meet certain requirements. And chief among those requirements is that they have to be energy efficient. They have to meet federal environmental priorities, which obviously do not include building in environmentally sensitive land like the Greenbelt. So, I'll leave the provincial decisions to the provincial government. But what I will say is that our federal...
I said that this is a former immigration minister, and now he's in charge of the housing, which they blame, the immigrants, pouring into the country, which does not make sense because this is the sector he managed for years as an immigration minister. So using immigrant as an scapegoat is something that is unacceptable, because those immigrants is trying to blame, or the universities that gave them admission, and now they turn around and start blaming the employers, and after that they turn around and start blaming, that the immigrants are causing the housing crisis in Canada. So I'm going to be back in a short while. Welcome back. And next, I'm going to let you hear from the former immigration minister, because, as I said, these are people that are supposed to have fixed the immigration crisis or immigration policies. I'm going to let you hear from the former immigration minister, and almost all of them have the same language, telling the whole world that Canada needs immigrants, Canada needs more population because of the aging population, Canada needs more workers, Canada needs foreign students, Canada needs foreign workers. Every immigration office minister, you know, sit on the existing projection of pouring in immigrants in Canada. But in other words, in other hands, it's not reality, because people are being deported every day. People are being denied their application every day. So why can't this cabinet come together and solve this problem once and for all? I will let you to listen this immigration minister, what he said before they removed him and put out, the current immigration minister, Miller, which I will come back to it in a short while. I want you to listen to him by yourself.
More people. Canadians understand the need to continue to grow our population if we're going to meet the needs of the labor force, if we're going to rebalance a worrying demographic trend, and if we're going to continue to reunite families and to do right by the world and make good on our commitments to support some of the world's most vulnerable. My view is that Canada is uniquely positioned in the world to use immigration to achieve these outcomes. The reality is you don't need to dig into the stats to understand that there was a million jobs available in the Canadian economy. You need to walk down Main Street of any community in Canada. You're going to see help wanted signs in the window. This is the economic context that we're living through right now. We are at a pivotal moment right now in Canada's economic history. And we are staring at one of the greatest economic opportunities of our time when people around the world are looking to move, and Canada has become the world's top destination for people who are thinking of leaving their country of origin to pursue economic opportunity elsewhere. It's up to us to seize this moment and take advantage of this opportunity. I'm looking forward immensely to seeing Canada continue its tradition of welcoming newcomers, which is as important to the national interest today as it has ever been.
Okay, you can hear direct from him, and this is a former immigration minister who, promised the increase on immigration on immigrants. He did not achieve that before they removed him. And this is what I'm trying to let you to understand, that all the promises the politicians are making, they need population, they need more immigrants, is not happening, because you can do your own research. How many people being deported every day, every week, including the budget over $60 million to Canada Border Service Agency to remove those that have exhausted all their domestic remedy. Had the government want to fix the migration crisis, they should have legalized all those people already groomed into the system, those people already have a job. I have seen the Canada Border Service Agency to the extent of going to the employers, telling them to stop the employee they have work, even though their work permit is still valid. So why is all this confusion? Why can't the government do the needful? Why can't the government do the same thing? They intend, they promise. Why is it true? Why is Trudeau still, since 2015 till now, is still talking about immigration reform? Does it make sense? Does it mean that he does not understand what he wants to do, or he really does not want, to fix this problem, or probably he want to continue on the issue of, immigrants, making them vulnerable. Why can't the system be fixed once and for all? And I'm going to also let you know that the opposition is weighing in on this matter because they want to use it during the election. As election is approaching, they want to use it for campaign, which does not make sense. I don't know how immigrants will continue to fall victim.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
So I'm going to also let you know or listen to the Conservative candidates, the prospect candidates in the next election, so that you can also by yourself to understand what I'm trying to tell you, that this is not a speculation, it is a reality. I would like you to listen, and you can be able to, see by yourself what they intend to do.
Says he'll cut immigration levels to better align with available jobs, housing, and health services.
They grew the population almost 3 times as fast as the housing stock. That is entirely a decision of Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. When I'm Prime Minister, population growth will be below the growth in jobs, housing, and healthcare.
Poilievre's statement comes as a new survey from Leger and Post Media found 78% of Canadians believe current immigration rates are contributing to the housing crisis, while 76% believe it's contributing to stresses on the healthcare system. And 72% believe Canada's immigration policy overall is too generous. Will Poilievre's approach to immigration resonate with voters? It's time to bring in our Friday Power Panel. Nigan Sinclair is a columnist for the Winnipeg Free Press. Mia Rabson is a parliamentary reporter with the Canadian Press. And the CBC's Jason Markusoff is in Calgary. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Mia. So I just read those poll numbers to you. Canadians believe that the country is essentially accepting too many immigrants and it's having a problem on some of our services. Do you think that that's why we're seeing the government take a step back and why we're maybe seeing Poilievre go a bit on the offense about immigration? He's been pretty quiet about that issue. Now we're starting to see a turn from both the Liberals and the Conservatives. What do you think is motivating that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one thing that Poilievre said in that press conference that really resonates is that what's happened with the immigration system in Canada in the last 2 years, rightly or wrongly, has upset the apple cart on this, I think Poilievre called the Canadian consensus on immigration. We are a country obviously built on immigration. We depend on immigration. It's been very clear that for our economy to grow, and especially with our aging population here, immigration is critical. But when immigration exceeds certain capacities, which both the government and the opposition are now acknowledging has happened, and now they're trying to pull back on that, for sure, it is contributing to a growth in anti-immigration sentiment in this country, which is never a good thing there's no way that is a positive development. And it's a very difficult thing to some extent to pull back on. And the parties also have to walk a bit of a fine line because there are a lot of immigrants or Canadians who have recently immigrated or family members who've immigrated who still want other family members to come. They believe in immigration. So there's a bit of a delicate balance here, but I do think you're going to see more from the government on this. And for sure, this is going to be a growing line of attack from Poilievre and the Conservatives.
Yeah, Jason, the Liberal Party, for much of the post-war period has been known as the party of immigrants, right? They have always been supportive of immigration. They have, over the last few years, overseen a massive expansion of the population. We've added more than 1 million people last year through various programs, permanent and non-permanent. We know the non-permanent population has actually doubled in the last 2 years to nearly 3 million. Now they're talking about dialing it back. Now the Liberal government saying maybe this rate of growth isn't such a great thing. What do you make of that about-face?
I mean, their target was was not 1 million people, it was 500,000 people. The problem is that they're allowed, that's just permanent residents.
You heard that, and we'll be right back. So you're going to hear from the Mark Miller, the immigration minister, and I want you to carefully follow up what he's saying. And this was like March 2024. And I'm going to play you another interview was granted on May, 1 month after that. So you can be able to, see things by yourself and understand what I'm trying to say.
Refugees and Citizenship is visiting Sudbury today to announce new immigration pilots for rural and francophone minority communities. And he's kind enough to join us in studio today to talk about it. Thanks so much for your time, Minister Miller.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So let's get right to it. Tell our viewers about your announcement today and why Sudbury is the place to do it.
Well, we're doing two things. Immigration in Canada has to be more coordinated, and often immigrants head naturally Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. And we've had communities, rural communities in particular, really saying how important immigration is to the growth of their cities. And Sudbury obviously is a natural place to launch these two immigration pilots. One for rural and northern communities, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, Timmins, North Bay, have been all beneficiaries of the rural northern immigration pilot. We're going to make that permanent so that those towns and others across Canada can have the choice to select people and immigrants that come to this country and place them in jobs, which is the best way to integrate folks into this country. As well as another really important thing to who we are as Canadians, which is to make sure that we have French prospering outside Quebec as it does inside Quebec. And that means making sure the federal government is being a little more targeted and making sure that Francophone speakers can go to those communities where there is sort of a natural basin of French speakers, historical connections to the French language, and make sure that that grows.
And we know how important that is here in Northern Ontario, that's for sure. So what are you looking for in selecting communities, and when will the application process to participate begin?
So essentially in the fall is where we'll be launching all this. The current program, the Northern program, ends in August, so we will be creating a new program. We want to make a few tweaks to it, but we also want to make sure that we are making it permanent. And so that's really what we're announcing today, really transitioning to a more permanent state of affairs so that communities aren't always coming to Immigration Canada and saying, when are you going to make it permanent? When can we do this? Because it's been a great success. We also want to expand it. So the communities that are the beneficiaries of these programs today will be able to apply into this new program. I have no reason to believe that they won't be selected, but we also want to expand it given its success. So this will be rolling out over the course of the spring and the summer, with a launch tentatively scheduled for the fall.
That is all great news for our region. On a separate note, we've been hearing a lot of reaction and criticism lately from Ontario's post-secondary schools regarding the cap on international students coming in. What's your message to Northern institutions?
Well, the message is pretty simple. This is really something that's gotten out of control in the last couple of years, something the federal government has a role of getting under control, but we also need provinces to make sure that they're being responsible, and when they select designated learning institutions, those institutions that then issue permits to people to come into this country, to make sure that they not only get the top education that they were promised when they were recruited abroad, but also that it does not become our own homegrown asylum crisis. A lot of these people, when they are not able to find permanent jobs and stay here, claim for asylum. That is not necessarily the sign of a healthy system. So there is something wrong with it currently. We are taking some very important steps to correct that, but we need provinces on board, and obviously institutions that are the beneficiary of the international students, and sometimes making 4 or 5 times, 6 times the tuition that a domestic student is making, need to properly surround those students to make sure that they are getting that experience and not being left up to their own devices once they graduate, and not necessarily into the job that they were promised or trained for.
Thank you for this, Minister.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with the Honourable Mark Miller, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, about his announcements in Sudbury today.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that if the minister knows that this was just last March, and I will play again the other interview which was granted to him on May, And I don't know. What I'm trying to understand here is, my question is, what suddenly changed? What suddenly changed? Why, making announcement that immigrants are needed and they will increase the number of application of people coming in, and they just less than 1 month, and he's changing his voice, which does not make sense. This is what I'm trying to, this is what I'm talking about. So what is the point of, making this announcement? Why is the government trying to do this by, confusing the situation around the globe? And this is not a good reputation what the immigration minister is doing, because he has stopped many programs that immigrants are benefiting from, and now introducing his own system that is not going to work. And this is what I would like you also to listen to him again on this interview, so you can see the conflict he's creating.
Today for a citizenship ceremony. Minister Mark Miller dropped by the studio to discuss recent concerns with housing and international students, saying the new cap on international student enrollment is meant to help, but action from all levels of government are needed to make the change. CTV's Colton Weens reports.
It's sort of gotten out of control in the last couple of years.
Canada's Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, Mark Miller, making a stop in Kitchener as part of Citizenship Week, taking the time to comment on Conestoga College's recent surge of international student enrollment.
There's been significant underfunding for a really, really long time, that provinces have just not put the money into the educational system that they really should in a country like Canada. And institutions have adapted, like Conestoga.
Conestoga's international student enrollment grew 1,579% in the past 7 years. Conestoga says in an email, its increased enrollment over the last 5 years was supported by the federal government. Last year, the college invested over $74 million in student supports and just purchased 8 new housing properties, saying our international allocation will have local impacts, including reduced employment opportunities for local residents.
The other side of things is that often these kids are left without the job that they got a diploma for. And the feeling and sense that sometimes is that they've been tricked into coming to Canada.
From 2022 to 2023, there was a 324% increase in Conestoga's international students seeking asylum. Amidst a housing crisis, the mayors of Waterloo and Kitchener say they work with the college on finding housing for students.
It's of critical importance. I do feel for the universities and the college because they're not being funded right now to build residences for students, and that's I think a big gap.
And I think what it really speaks to is the need for all three orders of government, the federal government, provinces and territories, and municipalities, to actually work together around issues of immigration.
But when the volumes get out of control, the federal government has to use its role, and so does the provincial government.
Miller says the new federally imposed temporary cap for approved study permits should help ease housing affordability and supply in the short term.
And we have to make sure that that is done in the right way. When institutions have more students than some provinces, I think that's a warning signal.
Miller saying the international student system as a whole needs review, and in his own words, to be reined back in. Colton Weens, CTV News, Kitchener.
And to watch the extended interview with Minister Miller, you can find that over on our website, ctvnewskitchener.ca.
So in this aspect, and I want you to understand, because if you are planning to come to Canada, and oftentimes you don't get adequate information, and you're already inside the country before you start finding out some information, and you start finding out some confusion, some conflict, and by then you already spent all what you have, sold what you have, and your parents already, sent, according to the new immigration minister since January 2024, that any international student have at least minimum of 22,000 Canadian dollars, which in example, as I said in my previous program, 22,000 1,000 Canadian dollars compared with what the money is today, 1,200 times 22,000, you know that we are talking about 20-something million dollars. So, and most of those students coming here, they enroll in educational sector that is nothing to, to compare to even to their previous first degree. Some of them apply for tourism, some of them applying for visual arts, some of them apply for some courses that cannot help them to grow in life. So if you are planning to come to Canada, you need to do a lot of research. My goal here is to make sure that there is a balance between the government and the immigrant and the information coming from the government, and counterbalance the flip-flop of the Minister of Immigration. In the other hand, announcing that they need immigrant, they need population, they need this, they need the international student. In the other hand, they're blocking, systematically blocking those opportunity for those people. Maybe 1,000 people made an application and 200 people or 150 is given, and this has been polarized. So my point here is that I have some program with some countries, universities that are giving scholarships, are even begging immigrants to come to their country. I will be publishing it on my program as long as those agreements is completed, because there are many countries around the globe that they want immigrants to fill up the gap, study free, have a scholarship, and after graduation you work for them, and you can also have your papers. They even pay for your flight ticket so that you don't come and face what other people are facing, like a lot of people that are stranded. This is what I see every day, because it's not the way it is. I believe that this election may solve this issue, but the problem is that there is no alternative opposition that can reform the immigration, because if the conservative take over the government, things will become worse, because you heard from the prospect candidate of the conservative government party, who said that he's against the growth of Canadian population to go more than the housing, which does not make sense. And these people are crafted people. They live crafted life, the way they live, the way they laugh. The policy is not on your interest. I have seen a lot of good people in Canada, but whenever they contest election and win the election, they change totally, because they need to go on the policy of the party. They now remove that humanity on them. I know what I'm telling you, so I don't want you to fall the victim of circumstances coming and become stranded and end up driving Uber with your first degree and second degree already have in your country. So I'm going to let you go through some of this information that I have put in out there on my program, so that you can be able to make some analysis on your own instead of falling a victim. I will be ending today's program, and if you have any question, feel free to comment, feel free to send me any question. I'm available to answer you. Don't forget, my name remain Ekens Azubuike. I'm the founder of Ekens Foundation International, and my job is I'm an immigrant advocate. Okay, because Canada, structure, Canada, origin, Canada existence is based on immigrants. And you see the former immigration minister, which I have displayed his information here, who was among the beneficiary of Canada immigration policy, because he came here as an immigrant and he managed to become immigration minister, and that was the opportunity he had to reform the immigration sector, but he missed it, because all of them work on script, which is not in the favor of immigrants. Thank you very much for joining the program. If you like my program, you can share the program and subscribe. I'm on YouTube. On Facebook. You can subscribe my program to see when I put on more information, because the immigration policy in Canada is changing almost every week. Okay, and there is election period. Election is around the corner, less than 1 year approximate, which I will be using my platform to, based on my other organization, which is Ethnic Voters Party Movement of Canada, which I use to lobby the grassroots voters on where to put their votes based on interest of the immigrants. Because I'm not saying that this government hates immigrants, because there has been consistently showing being pro-immigrant, but sudden U-turn being anti-immigrant. This is what I don't understand, because the government is blaming the housing crisis on immigrants, blaming the employers hiring foreign workers, blaming international students. I don't really know what is the intention of the government. And subscribe my program, send me any message. You can also share the program. You can give us a star if you like the program, but we are available to answer any question you need regarding immigration procedure before you jump on the flight selling off what you have, or looking for money selling land, cars, or property, in order to pay $22,000 for admission and come to Canada and end up being an Uber driver. If you don't want to do that, inbox me, and I'm going to give you any information free of charge. I remain Ekens Azubike. More information can be, you can visit our website is www.ekensfoundation.org. Thank you and remain blessed.